You're listening to UnitedWeStrike.com radio on the International Community Radio Network.
And you are listening to the United We Strike Radio Marathon for July 12th, 2014. I tell you, more than half the year is already gone. My name is Gary Hendershot. I've taken over the production duties. I am broadcasting live at 5 o'clock p.m. Eastern U.S. time from my secret underground bunker just 12 miles south of Washington, D.C. Got an interesting presentation for you right now. Going to be bringing on Rosen and Dr. Dean Lloyd, so please do stand by as I make them live right now. Guys, it's all yours. Take it away.
Oh, thank you, and greetings, everybody. Yes, welcome to the United We Evolve portion of today's United We Strike Marathon. My name is Rosen. I'm a philosopher, author, health consultant, and through the medium of the human psyche, my art is facilitating the evolutionary unfoldment of human potential. Along with my good friend and colleague, Dr. Dean Lloyd, we are here peddling comprehensive intelligence to our planetary citizenry. So let me set the tone for this transmission. As in keeping with what we started on last month's marathon, we want to see what's available to us, both individually and collectively, that can enhance the quality of our lives. Today, we will start to consider the health of our body-mind synergy. So, how do you view your body? As a temple or as a prison? Your body is either your energy strata vehicle, facilitating the mobile access of your awareness through the variously available mediums of materiality, or your body may come to seem like a deadening weight, shackling your expectations in a prison of diminishing returns and strangulating pain. As we consider what's available to us in terms of health, allow me to point out that there are no panaceas. Everybody is looking for the magic pill, or that exceptional something that will make everything. You know, the vitality indefatigable, the feelings calm, clear, and openly responsive, the emotions enthusiastically euphoric, the intellect able to sharply process the integration and cross-correlation of information with computer-like rapidity, sexual responses purring in an ever-escalating orgasm, along with access to more expanded rates of perception made accessibly tangible, with all of it functioning to give you perfect health. There ain't no such thing. Your body is a very logical construct of interactive biological mechanics. Your body never breaks down for no reason. To achieve optimal functioning, it is necessary to figure out what you've been feeding and or doing to it that you shouldn't have been, what you're not providing for it that you should be, how this has created excesses and deficiencies in the various metabolic systems, where and to what degree this has created imbalances and or blockages, how the functional, interrelated emphasis on the various glands and organ secretions have been affected, and what is necessary to rectify the situation and coax your body to regain its dynamically harmonic balance. Then you're in a position to explore, experiment, and discover just how good you can feel. However, not that you might know it by the madcap intensity by which we too often feel driven, yet it is vitally important to realize that life is not an emergency. When it comes to the trauma resulting from accidental injury and or assault, modern medical technocrats have developed the best in emergency care service. Still, life is not an emergency, and you don't want to live as though your life is an emergency. Barring accidental injury and or assault, by the time you're experiencing the pain, diminished mobility, and obvious symptoms of a diagnosable ailment, the problem has already been going on for quite some time. Of course, bringing relief from pain and stemming the tide of breakdown is basic and essential. However, the suppression of symptoms and the forced removal of deteriorating conditions will not correct the imbalances that caused the problems in the first place. Rather than whittle the body down into a diminishment of performance capabilities, it's far more important to correct the imbalances so the body can reestablish the equilibrium of its own homeostasis. In terms of human energizing, half of our life game involves energy. The other half involves consciousness. There are three distinct sources of energy that intercombine to provide power for human activity. First is vitality, and your vitality is generated by the functional integrity of your operative metabolism. Second, energy. Your energy is produced by your mental positioning, depending upon how appropriately and effectively you're able to position your mind by willing focus and concentration. And third, there's creative awareness, and this includes your ability to open to more abundant energy frequencies by moving into more expansive spatial relations and the motions they facilitate. However, too often, out of lack of understanding, in so trying to do this, your body can become even more drained. You can push it, and that will imbalance it, while your mind winds up tighter and tighter trying to force the matter. This rips off your willpower that could have been used and applied for creative expansion and or healing relaxation. When your physical vitality can more than handle the demands of your activities, this in turn feeds your mental processes, allowing you to more succinctly focus your thoughts. This can enable you to take care of your business while still having an excess of mental energy which you can use to peek beyond the normal confines of your day-to-day survival routines. In turn, this will allow you, if you're so inclined, to enter into more creative relations with whole new ranges of energy and the potentials of their applied motion. Then, if effectively utilized, your creative expansion will in turn feed back, expanding the scope of both your mental energy and your physical vitality. In other words, pleasure guides your way to health. Pain, be it physical, emotional, and or spiritual, is a blocked flow of energy, crippling your ability to enjoy. Pain makes everything into a burdensome effort. Pain makes you contract, turn away from, inhibits your range of motion, and if left to go on, it will eventually shut you down. Pleasure entices you into opening to a more expansively inclusive range of motion, so that with your sensibility stimulated to a more heightened sensitivity, your vitality and your awareness reinvigorate each other. All right, this is broad broad spectrum of what we're going to be talking about today. But please, Dean, come on, jump in and share with us some of your thoughts on this matter.
Hi, and hello, everybody, and thank you, Am, for that. I am Dr. Dean Lloyd, a practitioner of healing, inventor, author, professor, radio show host, and a few other things. When we're talking about health and considering it seriously, need to focus on what we're moving into. If we're taking health seriously, that is. So I have some questions for the listeners. Why is Dr. Oz so popular? Or if you've never heard of him, why are there so many shows on health these days? In other words, what do people crave? In my practice, I hear a lot of similar questions. Let's see if you resonate to these or have heard them before yourself. I hear, Dr. Dean, that sounds like too much work. When the job appears to be overwhelming them, too much that they can perceive them handling. Too many supplements, too much exercise, changing sleeping patterns, working patterns, dietary, whatever. Okay, then what is meant by falsely confident or dependent, as in depending on drugs, high blood pressure medications, pain medications, etc.? I hear I won't get off these medications, but I don't know how. If I do, what's going to happen to me? I'm afraid. My doctor says I will be on this medication forever. What are the reasons I'm on these drugs anyway? And they're doing me some good? Any good? These are common places people go these days. In fact, 50% of the medications in the world are taken by Americans. That's 50% of the world taking pharmaceutical medications. And incidentally, our military takes 30 times more than the general public. Interesting statistic. So I have another one. I have the question that comes to me, I just want to feel good. How? Well, today we, Am and I, will answer these questions. Seem incredible? Well, why is health, then, not politics, the number one topic these days on radio, perhaps television? What does it mean to gain access to or envisioning and attaining these higher, more fulfilling levels of optimal health versus running from the fear of disease? Where are the curative resources in us? Where are the abilities that we've never been told we have? Our adaptive reserve, for example. And why have they been obscured? Chinese medicine, something I have an expertise in, I have renamed as Chinese healing tools. And because we look at medicine so very often with the subconscious view of it controlling us, Am and I are here to help you gain control of yourself, which is the pathway to health. Am, thank you.
Oh, good intro, Dean. All right, let's consider some of the stressors that they're all working for, the various demands on our modern lifestyle. We have environmental stressors. There's chemical contamination of the water and the air. There's chemical and genetic adulteration of the food supply. There's saturated electronic and microwave bombardment, and the constant hum of electromagnetic noise pollution. Then there's the emotional stressors. First of all, you're marketed, very, shrewdly marketed self-imaging acceptability. Well, baby, you're unhappy. The problem is you didn't put my designer label on your jeans. Now, that's nonsense, but it's not aimed at your reasoning mind. It's aimed at the place where you feel insecure and inadequate, where you'll keep looking, hopefully, for something that'll get you away from that self-persecuting torment of not feeling good about yourself, and you'll keep buying it. Oh, you put the designer label on your jeans. Yeah, but did you put my particular product under your armpits? All nonsense. But the more you fight it intellectually, the more susceptible you become to where it's aimed at, the unresolved issues in your psyche. There's also the kind of nonstop media blitzing anxiety forecasts of climate shifts causing ecological disruption, droughts, famines. There's wars and terrorism. Oh, that's become big business. There's outbreaks of pandemic generating disease factors. When's the next shoe going to drop? There's dire warnings of possible economic, collapses, recessions, depressions. And we get our smattering of deranged psychopaths on killing sprees. That's just to name a few of the anxiety-threatening possibilities that are sensorily assailing our modern citizens' overamped apprehension. And then you have the sickness industry, where too often, as Dean mentioned, by non-curative pharmaceuticals. And I call it a sickness industry because it's not aimed to make you healthy. It's aimed at managing symptomology. But what they give you it never cures the problem, and it always comes with a cascade of escalating secondary side effects, which can actually diminish the body's ability to cope. So this is a lot of stuff that we're wandering around with. Now, none of this stuff existed 100 years ago. Technology has gone through leaps and bounds. But, and some people say, well, return to a primitive, simple life. Our nervous systems are evolving and complexing. The technology isn't good, and it isn't bad. It's not right or wrong. It does provide access. It strictly depends on what level of intelligence, what's directing our use of the technology. And no matter how good we get in one aspect of our life, we may be competent, shrewd, we may be a genius inventor. It doesn't mean that we're psychologically integrated. As I mentioned on other shows, what's running the show right now is the irrationality of our subconscious conditioning. Very few people seem to understand it, but they've learned to identify the patterns and they play off of them, which has most people in a bind. You'd like to feel comfortable, at ease, clear, vital, but you seldom do. Now, the cardinal rule for maintaining metabolic balance is this: input of nutrients must match the output expenditure of energy to keep a balance. And that's if you were in balance in the first place. Most people are not. And this is not a criticism. If you look and see the pathways we've taken in our development, how the marketplace is dominating. Nothing wrong with the marketplace, but it's being used by people who only understand one aspect of it. It's become glorified unto itself. But if you are doing these things and you don't have balance, well, then it's hard to keep up. Because inadvertently, to meet the demands of your will, what you think you should be doing, how you think you should be presenting yourself and relating, you will inadvertently draw from one organ or gland system to feed the output the demands of another. Now, if you're in balance and you understand what you're asking of the body, what metabolic systems come online to perform the tasks you're doing, and you keep a sufficient nutrient supply, you can go at a much higher speed without the wear and tear. But once you drop below that, if you're going to sit on your tail for a couple of weeks in a tropical resort and just enjoy, well, that's beautiful. But if you're going to go like crazy in an urban megatropolis, you're burning a lot of energy. And as I said, with all these vexations and anxieties and apprehensions caused by our modern short-sighted expediencies, most people are burning a lot of emotional energy. Until you reach a certain level of competency, psychological competency, your body takes all your emotions seriously, even when you're just kind of mentally masturbating in your mind. And it rips off the body. So a part of this is maintaining the proper nutrient flow to match your output, but also what's necessary to establish and maintain vital health. Well, you need an appropriately balanced diet. Now, as I've mentioned, the art of health is individual application. People's bodies, they have different genetic dispositions, they have different emphasis, different cultural orientations. Their own inclinations and dispositions affect the way they use energy. How well they've treated the body in the past, their age, their circumstances, the demands on these. All of these require adjustment. Yes, the mechanisms, the biological and conscious mechanisms are the same for everybody on the planet. But the use of them, the emphasis and the demands on them is idiosyncratic. It's particular to each person. So the art is figuring out what you need. But on a base level, you need an appropriately balanced diet. We'll get into that. You need exercise. It's not a vegetable body. You don't plant it and grow. It's designed, part of your ability to maintain health is to move the lymph system. It's the cardiovascular response. The body is locomotive. It's designed for motion. And without the proper amount of motion, your body can't perform adequately. You don't have to be nuts about it. You can if you want to really steel yourself for something, but it needs a certain at least basic modicum of exercise. You also need to learn to relax, and most people can't do that. I've gone off on vacation resorts, and I've seen people, they get there, boy, this is their big vacation, but they're so wound up that they can't really come in to enjoy what's going on there. So learning how to relax the mind, relax the nervous system, calm the metabolism through that, very essential. You also need restful sleep. Sleep is, if you go too long without sleep, you'll die. Sleep is where normally you're all sympathetic. You have ideas, you have needs, you have feelings, you have desires, and your sympathetic nervous system responds to your will, your volition. But when we go to sleep at night, that's when the parasympathetic nervous system takes over. Its job is to rebalance the body from the strains and the excesses, to allow the body to process what your demands on it haven't allowed. Without deep sleep, not just fitful, but deep, restful sleep, it's hard to maintain health. You also need emotional balance, because most people are at war in themselves, and they're tearing themselves apart with fears, confusion, doubt, guilt, shame, all kinds of anxieties. That has to be done away with. And you need a satisfying sense of purpose. What's my life about? What am I trying to achieve here? Because to focus your will adequately, you need reason and purpose. The better your reasons, the clearer your purpose, the more you can move. Not cast in stone, not hung up on a wall like a tin god. Things that are adaptable and flexible. So in your sojourning through life, as you get new information, new perspectives, you can come and say, yeah, I was doing it for these reasons, but now that I got this information, time to update. And you need pleasure, as I mentioned. You need joy. Because that is so beneficial. The heart responds, we'll get into that, but different organs, if you look at the way they're structured to process metabolically, you can see what emotional passages they feed into. I know Dean can talk about that from the Oriental perspective. And spiritual centering, what is that? That's the ability to let go. Everything's there. All the circuitry's operating perfectly, but it's the ability to let go and come fully into the moment, exquisitely aware of everything going on within and around you, without feeling reactively compelled to jump in and think about this and do this and make these changes. If you want to, you can, but it is nice to be able to be in the center of yourself, which is beyond any thoughts you can have. Okay, a few ideas, and we want to continue this and make it more specific. But Dean, did you want to jump in there?
I'm sorry, Ann. I may have lost Dean.
You may have lost him. Okay, well, while you're getting him back, I guess I'll just continue on.
I just handed the football to you. I think you're carrying it towards the end zone at this point.
All right. Well, let me know when it comes back online, if you would, Gary. All right. Barring accidental injury and or assault, there are basically two ways we imbalance and thereby impair the functional integrity of our metabolism. One, we don't supply enough of the right kind of nutrients. We start running on empty. We strain our systems, and this creates an imbalance. The mind winds up tighter and tighter, trying to force you to be able to keep up with who you think you should be, how you should project yourself, and what you should be doing. But if the nutrient supply is insufficient, then the body will become slacker. So the mind becomes more uptight, the body can't deliver vitality, it can't calm down, the body becomes weaker, you feel like you're being split apart. And the second way we imbalance ourselves is we put in an inadequate quality of nutrients, and we impair the performance capability. You know, if you have a car, high quality car, super fine engine, boy, when it's in good shape, it's a marvel of technology. But if you put the wrong grade of oil and gas in it, you put the wrong fuel supply in it, if the construction of the things that have to carry this fuel are inadequate, well, then you're going to start to sludge the engine up. It's going to slur performance. It'll eventually cause breakdown. It'll shut it down. Same thing's true with our bodies. If you try to run it on something that it can't metabolize properly, it will interfere and it will cause imbalance. Now, you get excesses and deficiencies. Too much here, not enough there. This is self-defeating. It creates inflammation because the body can't process, and it will eventually start to shut down the operative vitality of the tissues that are involved in any of these structures. Okay, in considering the two approaches to health, first we want to remove blockages and imbalances. I've been in practice for 38 years. I integrate naturopathy, homeopathy, oriental medicine, clinical nutrition, just to name a few of the things, radiesthesia, kinesiology, a lot of different modes of body adjustment. And of course, the most important work I do is with consciousness itself. So the first thing you want to do when somebody comes to me is you want to evaluate if you have a problem, I'm always suspicious. Why is this part of your body the weak link? Why is this where the emphasis is going in terms of the imbalance? And why is this breaking down? But nothing stands by itself in the body. It's a whole system. So what are the contributing organs and glands that should be supporting and interacting with this part of the body, doing or not doing? Where are their deficiencies? So you want to eliminate those blockages. Second, we want to learn how to optimally enhance the range of what's available to us. In other words, most people are stuck, gee, I don't feel good, get me away from it. That's the absence of pain syndrome. And, of course, if we're in pain, physical, emotional, mental, and you get a break from it, you go, oh, thank God. Whew. I'm glad because, I don't think I could have taken much more of that. But that's not pleasure. That's a release from pain. Pleasure is not getting away from something you don't like. Pleasure is moving towards a more expansive, inclusive, integrated state of awareness. Yeah, this feels pretty good. I feel good, but hey, how much better could I feel? Can we up the ante on this? So these are the two approaches. But somewhere in the point, in between these two, we're looking for a balance point, something that creates harmony, that we can start to control and maneuver creatively according to our own unique individuality, and that comes through understanding. So, let me
I'm here.
Oh, you're there. There you are, Dean. Well, before I go on, please jump back in, man. Glad you're back.
Thank you. In so much to comment on what Ann was saying, and my internet went down for a moment there, so I lost about, 10 minutes of what Ann was talking about. But what I was following in his presentation, of course, was that if we're going to identify what is out of balance, we have to first know what balance is. If we were to look at it, and Am mentioned that he operates from multidisciplines. He comes from naturopathic point of view. He sees Chinese medical point of view. He can even consider the point of view of an allopath, which is the modern medicine, if you will, the emergency medicine. And what balance is considering how we are set up as a functional operating person in a world that is out of balance. Because our world has so many out of balance issues. The food is undernourished, not nourishing us because it's been depleted, the soil's depleted. The water has to be purified because it's contaminated most places. The air quality is poor in most cities. We oftentimes have to take some action in cleaning our air quality. So what Am has been talking about is what is burdening the body? What are the stress levels? Where are they coming from? And it's easy to point out, you pick any one of them on the outside. Even radiation levels are going up at a remarkably fast rate, and we're not even sure just how much of it is in the food we're eating or the rain that's coming down. So we're going to have to prepare ourselves or defend ourselves from these environmental stressors. And it's not something that we need to freak out about or let it rule us. We want to just be informed on how to prevent these just serious pollutants, if we will, or ways of breaking down cellular integrity. How do you rebuild them? So the show next month will be focusing on some details in regards to this, but we first want to set the stage by saying that nutritional stressors come from many levels, and as Am was describing, input versus output. If our input is, let's say that we're eating out of stress. Now, is that input? No, it's not. It's not coming from a place of balance. This is what I want to clarify, is saying, I'm hungry all the time, I can't stop eating, or I'm hungry for something that isn't good for me, although I really want it, and there's an emotional attachment to it. Dr. Borkin, a friend of mine that works at the Saber Sciences Laboratory in Southern California, had a discussion with me, and we identified one very common, if you will, food that is what we would call the number one food that breaks down hormones for women. And I bet I've got everybody just scratching their head saying, what would that be? And the answer, in America anyway, we see more women eating ice cream and causing imbalances. Now, if I was just to take that one food, break it down, it's sweet, okay, it's got sugar in it, it's cold. Cold arrests digestion. Digestion needs to be 100% in the 100 degrees in the stomach before it starts to break down, so it slows digestion. It's got dairy, which a lot of people have difficulty breaking down dairy. They lack the proper nutritional enzymes, proper pH. They're not breaking down the fats of the proteins. They're lacking betaine hydrochloric acid or enzymes. And it's also eaten at excess. Now, this is not what we're talking about, input versus output. I need ice cream. Well, it seems a little bit funny, but really what's happening is the brain is requiring to meet the needs of what the output is. So let's consider another option. Let's say ice cream versus nutritional supplements, okay? And the foods that go along with it. You can't live off nutritional supplements, but I would be willing to, submit the argument that you couldn't survive a healthy life without them these days, because there's so many antagonists, unless you live in a tropical paradise, which very few of us do. In any case, the output of your energy needs to be balanced out. So this is what I'm talking about. If it's macronutrients, proteins, fats, and carbohydrates, the amount of energy you're burning up, that's one piece of it. The other piece is what are the catalysts to these energies? And that goes in the way of vitamins. The multiple vitamins are very useful in a lot of people because they lack the required B vitamins, for example, or they lack the required amount of minerals, and these deficiencies build up. We in this country, for example, have the highest level of osteoporosis, osteopenia, and any of the bone disorders than any other country in the world. And we consume more calcium than any other country. Now, there's a problem, isn't there? If we're taking in what would be required by our body to fix these problems, why isn't it working? And there's a lot to be said about these. But what we are as a culture focusing in on is the disease-oriented mind. We are not relaxing. We are not getting restful sleep for the most part. We are not getting nutrition in a proper level. So it's been out of focus, and there's been too much time. If I would be so bold as to present my opinion first, is that we're spending too much time on the identifying diseases side of life rather than identifying what a healthy outlook is and where we need to position ourselves to obtain what it looks like to be healthy. So I don't know how much I missed of Am's segment there, but I just wanted to make sure that that was filled in, because so very often we're not thinking in terms of what a balance. Yeah, it's balanced, okay. Well, are you sleeping? Are you exercising? Are you getting nutrition? And if I'm saying something that you already know, on an intellectual level, you probably do. But do you feel like you're getting what you need for what you're trying to achieve? Okay, Am, take over.
Good points, Dean. Yeah, you mentioned a lot of things I'd like to kind of clarify for people. First of all, when somebody comes to me because I want them to feel relaxed, the first thing I tell them is, you're employing my expertise. I'm working for you. And I need to be clear. I need to make this available to you. I don't want you to just believe, because my job is to educate you. It's your body and your mind. And the only way you're really going to feel good with them is when you understand enough of how they work and what you're going through, what your demands are, to take charge of them. Now, not enough to understand other people. That's a professional level. But we go through seasons, changes, all kinds of things come up. So what's going on in the body? Now, the body is the dumb animal. I like to say the beast needs a good master or mistress, according to the gender. But your body is easily addicted. The things that we are consuming with so much, rapidity, so completely all the time, they weren't available in a primitive hunter-gatherer society, and that's basically where your physiology is still operating from, where you won't find chemicals growing on trees, you won't find high-intensity extracts or pills growing on trees. You forage for what's there. But by the time you can socialize, culturalize, start to civilize the human body, well, in and of itself, you've brought it in from nature. You've domesticated the beast. It's not running wild with whatever the seasonable and topographical cueing signals are. You have to start to tell it what to do. Our body, your body, can and will adapt, but in and of itself, it does not know how to adapt to all these things that are being presented to it. By the time we have enough intelligence to create these things, we need to also have the intelligence to direct the body in their proper usage. The body is easily addicted. You change the metabolism, you start giving it a lot of sugar, it craves sugar, even if that sugar is ultimately hurting the insulin mechanism and the adrenal system, which you may be overstimulating. A heroin addict does not want fresh fruits and vegetables. They crave heroin. Once the body, at whatever level, neurological or metabolic, gets used to an imbalance, even if that imbalance is self-defeating, it's going to eventually kill it, it will still crave it because the body is dumb. So it's not what you eat, it's not what you swallow, it's what you can break down and assimilate. I wouldn't suggest it, but if you swallowed a hunk of lead, well, your body couldn't take apart a piece of inanimate lead. It would just hopefully pass through your system, and it might leave some traces that are not good for your body along the way. Just because we swallow food does not mean that we're assimilating it. So the first thing is you have to make people aware. This is a primitive system that you've accelerated with all these stressors and these demands on it. We used to sometimes say prayers before we ate. That is, whatever your belief system, a way of taking you off of this outer treadmill of activity. Got to be here, got to do this, got to seem like that, and bringing you into a place of receptivity where your body is ready to transmute solid food into biological energy. Now, if there are cueing mechanisms, if you eat some potato or some grain, some pasta, whatever, that's a carbohydrate. If you chew it well and it mixes with the ptyalin, about 40% of that, through the activation of the enzymes in your mouth, will start to be digested before it even leaves your mouth. Also, as you salivate, you're sending DNA messengers into other parts of the digestive system. The stomach becomes alerted. We got food coming down, prepared to secrete digestive enzymes. In the stomach's case, it's mostly HCl and pepsin to break down minerals, to break down proteins. Now, if that's successful, but remember, when we talk about gut emotions, we're saying that your emotions affect your guts, your ability to digest, assimilate, and eliminate what isn't digestible. So if you're too tense, if you're sitting down to eat, but you're saying, gee, I got this deadline, I got to get this done. Hey, does she really like me? Well, I did this. Damn it, they shouldn't have done that to me, and blah, blah, blah. You're swallowing food, but there's no sense of it. There's no deliciousness. The body's not getting the message. It's like you're shoveling it down. If the stomach doesn't do its job, if the ptyalin and the enzymes in the saliva haven't done their job, gets passed on through the duodenum into the beginning of the small into the beginning of the duodenum, the small intestine, where the pancreas and the depending on what you're eating, the bile may be secreted from the gallbladder to start to take what should have been already somewhat digested and break it down all the way so that it's broken down and it moves through your small intestine. It can be assimilated and passed into the bloodstream, and these nutrients can be sent to the appropriate cells and the appropriate tissues and the appropriate organs and glands to rebuild, to supply energy. But if all this comes through as an undigested glop because you're so tense and you haven't taken time to savor and chew and break it down, well, it gets pushed into the large intestine, called the colon. Now, that's the storage system. And if you want to pollute something, block up the storage system. You back up the waste and you start to toxify the system. One of the most sensitive organs in our body to emotional tension is the colon. If you call somebody an uptight ass, well, if they're uptight, you probably picked the right place. If you're walking down the street and something suddenly jumps out and surprises you, without realizing it, you'll inadvertently clutch your colon. And the tension by which we're constantly keeping ourselves worried about this, got to do that, got to be here, that keeps a tension level on the colon. There are reflex points in the body, in the hands, in the feet, in the ears, but also in the colon. And these reflex points stimulate or relate to other organs in the body. It's not just, I ate something, I'm fine, my stomach's distended. Did you get what you need out of it? If you didn't, no matter how much you eat, and that's if you're even eating things that are good for you, that will give you what you need, well, then you're kind of starving in the midst of a feast. There's food, but you're not able to assimilate it. So you're always hungry. This throws the system out of balance. Brain needs a certain amount of glucose to function. The brain is the only organ in our body that extracts glucose directly from the bloodstream without requiring insulin. All other cells require insulin. So your blood, if your glucose level drops, we call that hypoglycemia, low blood sugar. Well, then you start to feel depressed. Because your brain needs energy. It screams for it. You may start looking for sugar, which will only exacerbate the problem because it'll keep amping the insulin mechanism, which will push the sugar into the cells, which will wind up storing them as fat. The brain still isn't getting what it wants. So, wow, I don't want to be bothered. I just want to eat and go about my business. No. Health is lifestyle management. We're starting to talk about the beginnings of it today. Why is this important? Because when you straighten this out, you start to feel a lot better. But this may bring up a healing crisis. Now, healing crisis is mismanaged elimination. If the body's been running on empty, if it's straining, and you suddenly give it the nutrient factors, especially if you're very succinct about what's down and what will facilitate that, the body is genetically programmed to try to maintain balance. It will take these nutrient factors and use them to push out to deal with what it was deficient, what it didn't have the wherewithal to handle. And this can bring up all kinds of elimination problems. But if you know what you're doing, you can get this out of the body without derailing the person. But I've seen people go through all kinds of attempts at detoxification, but they don't know what they're doing. They also haven't given the body what it needs, so they wind up creating more problems more often than they do solutions. Anyway, some thoughts. Dean, please, jump in.
I was just reminded of this was yesterday, just reminded of a story that I had forgotten about in regards to the body changing direction when you put your mind in the place of being healed. This was a woman who was asking for, after all these different methods that were ineffective for her in overcoming a very rare skin condition, she was given, the dermatologists, there were 3 of them, gave her a variety of different creams for this very strange-looking rash. In fact, they came up with a misdiagnosis of it, but it's not important what it was. But what had happened is she used these creams that had not given her any real relief. It was not even providing her with much of anything at all. The point being that after these medications were used to suppress the immune system, the skin condition got worse. She went to see fortunately, somebody who was very insightful, a practitioner who did hypnosis therapy for her. And she told her when she was in a deep hypnotic state, a relaxed state of being, something that she hadn't been able to access on her own, and she had given her the picture of skin that was smooth and clean, and it had elasticity, and it was hydrated. It was pink. In other words, it had color, and she moved freely without any pain. And this was given to her in a repetitive way. They did several sessions, and her body was prepared to eliminate. Something that you were just mentioning is that when you bring the nutrients in and the body starts making those changes so that it can start repairing, it has to come out, whatever is in the way, whatever toxins are there, whatever is blocking. And to tie into the emotional aspect of this is that we have predispositions of our tissues and our emotions in our organs that if we're being drained by these emotions, it'll affect organs, some organs more than others. For example, in the case of lungs, the lungs are the emotion of most affected by grief. Grief, of course, when you have loss. And the opposite, in order for me to help illustrate what it looks like to be healthy, is let me have more of life. Give me more vitality. I want more of what's out there for me. So you have grief, heavy, deep emotional loss, or light. Bring in vitality in the lungs. I want to take in the earth. I want to take in the air. I want to take in life to my cells. So emotion of lungs is grief and the negative side, and taking in more of life and vitality on the what we'd refer to as the positive side, or the generating energy side. The other one that Am mentioned, the bowels, and he said that the bowels are one of the most sensitive organs. It's true. Our when you feel it in your gut, you've got a gut emotion that it hits you in the stomach. Well, if you're feeling the emotion of being worried, or so much in your head you can't stop thinking, we use the word in medicine, we use pensivity, which is being preoccupied in your brain. Then the first organ that feels it would be your stomach or your spleen. And it could go one way or the other. It could stop eating, you don't feel hungry, or you could want to eat all the time, ravenously. It's not in balance. And you see how the body is controlled by these emotions. If they're not in balance, your body's going to feel the repercussions of it and start responding off of it. Another one is the kidneys. Now, I was mentioning fear to heal. Well, fear is the main emotion for the kidneys. The kidneys are your ground. It's the foundation in which you build your sexual energy from. Primarily in Chinese medicine, if we're building your creative sexual energy, we focus on the kidneys. Well, the fear is a major drain. But what if you're revitalizing and you're not afraid to become more beautiful, more happy, more successful? This is where the happy kidneys come in. And it's interesting that this one, of course, in Chinese medicine, it's obvious, right? Water. It eliminates the toxins in your blood, the uric acid and whatever your body has used up, and goes to the urinary bladder. So these two organs, the urinary bladder and the kidneys, are most associated with fear. And the positive side of that, of course, is becoming what you're not afraid of what you want to be, what you are aspiring to be, where your creative energy comes from. Another organ is the liver. This one has a lot of problems in our culture because there's so many people on medications. The liver is always considered because you can overdo the medications to cause real toxicity to it. And the emotion that's most associated with that is anger. Now, anger is a very draining force. It's when you don't know how you feel, and it takes over. The anger shuts down. Anger can control your metabolism directly because the general, if you will, of the metabolism in your digestive system is the liver. And the last one, of course, is the heart. The heart is joy, and that's very simple. The lack of joy, your heart dies. The
Guys,
abundance
I
of joy,
hate to do it, but we're coming up on just a couple minutes here, and I want to make sure you get that blatant self-promotion done. Sorry to cut you off there, Dean. I hate to butt in, but I'm looking at the clock. We've only got about 2 minutes left, so please. No,
and we rely on you, Gary. This is our time that Am and I could just rant on for hours on this. So, so starting with me, it's Dr. Dean Lloyd at Accutone, ACUTONE.com. Our radio shows are archived there. You can also send me an email if you have questions for our show, and I'll just make it brief and say it that way. And Am, go ahead.
Thank you, Dean. Yes, well, my website is www.lifegame.com. There's a lot of things on there. There are the Geigers on the homepage, the process. There's some excerpts from my two newest recent books on books and recordings, all kinds of things. But let me say, in preparation for next month, we started to talk about how the body, when it's out of balance, produces negative emotions. We also want to talk about next time how good you can feel. And part of that is learning not only not to be a victim of your body, but how to take control and reprogram at deep levels, repattern as an ongoing adaptive process these organs and glands in your body to function at a much higher level so they feed into your vitality, feed into your mental energy, and open up more expansive processes for you safely and effectively. And I want to thank you all for allowing us to share with you. It's truly a privilege and a pleasure.
And as always, we really appreciate your participation in the marathon. But I'll tell you what, man, we've eaten up every second I could give you. Got to take us out here with a little music, and away we go.
You're listening to UnitedWeStrike.com radio. Don't buy, don't comply. Ask why. UnitedWeStrike.com radio.